Welcome to week 3, everybody. I wanted to go over what to do for this week. Um, in the materials, once you click on materials, you'll see our new unit opened up, Psychological Theories. And with a little asterisk, this means that this is the week that we're on now. So we've done Intro to Psychology, and now we're on Psychological Theories. So if you are a new student sort of joining, this will be kind of the last week we're taking new students in. If you're a new student joining, you need to email me and figure out what you want to do for the Intro to Psychology unit, okay? Because we're going to have to catch you up, okay? So for Unit 2, Psychological Theories, it's going to take us 3 weeks to cover all the theories from the beginning to the current state of affairs in psychology. And so, each week we're going to take a theory or two to talk about during our webinars. So this week we're going to talk about psychoanalysis, but our essential question, the one that we're going to answer in our 3-week unit here, is what is the history of psychological theory? Before we talked about the history of psychology as a general science, then that went from the ancient Egyptians all the way up through the beginning of using the scientific method in psychology. So this week we're going to talk about the actual theories that people came up with. And so the first group of theories is called psychoanalysis and psychodynamic. And so you can see the picture here in the work for week 1. This is the famous Vienna Society. This is Sigmund Freud. Left-hand side, there's Carl Jung in this picture, right? And these are all the first psychologists practicing in Vienna, Austria, in the late 1890s, in the early 1900s. Pretty cool, right? So work for this week. There's going to be a webinar quiz. So as soon as we're done with the webinar on Friday, you'll see posted right in here the PowerPoint that we talk about. So stay tuned for that pretty soon. And then I have a video in here about what psychoanalysis looks like. So this is an actual counseling, therapy session. I don't know if the person's a counselor or a psychologist or what, but it's like a demonstration session, so this person taped the session with a real client, and you can see kind of what it looks like, You'll see the psychoanalyst sitting behind they call them patients, not clients, and then you see the patient lying down on a couch, staring at the ceiling or staring at something that's not the psychologist. The psychologist is taking notes, and the patient is talking. So that's kind of what it looks like. And you'll see in here how the psychoanalyst deals with the actual session of therapy. So you can kind of check that out. It's kind of interesting. We have a discussion. We're going to discuss after the webinar. We're going to discuss the psychoanalytic perspective. So I want to know your opinion about what the psychoanalysts believe. We're going to talk about all kinds of interesting things like the id, the ego, and the superego. The first theory of personality. We're going to talk about if the events in your childhood affect you as an adult, that sort of thing. So that's what the psychoanalysts are about. The other assignment for the week is a school of thought paper. Now, this is going to be used in a couple of ways. One, it's going to demonstrate for me that you understand what psychoanalysis is. And 2, it's going to demonstrate for me that you can use this on the test, right? So you want a good paper here because you want to be able to use it on the test. So let's open it up here. And what you're going to do is fill this in. Now, there are a couple ways to do this. I have a Word doc here, which you can just click on the Word doc, open it up, and start typing. I have a PDF here, too. This is what I opened here. If you don't have Word on your computer, you can open the PDF and sort of cut and paste this into whatever program you're using. Okay, so like if I didn't have Word on my computer, I would just highlight all of this, and I would cut and paste it into whatever document I'm working on. Okay, if you want to, you can just cut and paste things right into the Dropbox. So when you turn it in, there's an option in the Dropbox. It's the second tab over. not to upload a file, but to actually start typing in the Dropbox itself. So if you want to do that, that's totally fine. And your school of thought summary is going to be the same, the template here is the same for each school of thought. We'll have 5. And for each school of thought, what you want to do is you want to talk about these categories, because these are the kind of things that are going to be on the test. Okay? So which people have contributed to the school of thought? So I'm going to talk about, this psychologist was important to psychoanalysis because of this reason. And this psychologist, took psychoanalysis in this direction and kind of pushed it further, that sort of thing, right? So you want to talk about the theorists, the actual psychologists. And you want to talk about what they've done to advance the theory. Like Freud we'll talk about as the person who created the theory. And then we'll talk about Jung, who sort of advanced it, Adler, who kind of pushed it a little bit further in a different direction, right? So there will be 3 theorists for this psychodynamic school of thought. The historical foundation is important because we'll talk a little bit about where the theories come from. Nothing just appears like a poof, like out of thin air or anything. They come from a context, and the context is important. So I want to know a little bit about the historical foundation, which we'll talk about. And so if you're taking good notes, you're going to have most of these answers already completely done. And you can always do your own research. That's totally fine too. But if you do some research, make sure you cite your sources like we were talking about with last week's assignment when you were researching your psychologist. Okay, so talk about in the historical foundation, where the theories come from and what was going on in the world around that time. Psychoanalysis couldn't have been created in a world where, or in a place that wasn't Vienna in the early 1900s. The next thing is the concept of health. So you should ask yourself, after you are looking at your notes here, what defines healthy? So each theory will have a very kind of strict definition of what healthy means and what a person who is healthy looks like and acts like and behaves like. Then the next part is the manifestation of problems. So to a psychoanalysis, where do problems stem from? Where do they come from? And then for treatment, what does treatment look like? How do they treat the problems that people have when they come to them for help? All right, that is the school of thought in a nutshell. Okay, so this is going to end up being like 1 page-ish or so if you type it out, right? And then you want to keep it and save it. So turn it into me, but then keep it and save it because you can use this on the test when we end up doing the test. We're going to do a test of all the theories once we get done with them all. So in about a month or so, we'll be doing a test. All right. Okay, so that was the school of thought assignment. This first one, might take you a little bit, but once you get going with it, you'll end up starting to take notes in the same areas. And I'll kind of talk about that during the PowerPoint presentation too about, if you want to just take notes in the actual program while we're talking about it, that would probably be the best, most efficient way to do it. So besides let me scroll down here, besides the psychoanalytic school of thought, we're working on our drafts. Last week we did some research on a famous psychologist, right? So if you're a new student watching this one right now, one of the things I'm going to tell you to do is you need to do a little bit of research on a famous psychologist. So we click into here. Oh man, it didn't post everything. All right, I have to go back and edit this, but it's going to say the 3 topics that you needed to cover, right? The first one that you had to do research on was his or her life story. The second one that you had to do was research on the person's influences. And the third one was research on the person's theory and contribution to psychology. Okay, so let me edit that real quick, and then I'll post that again. I guess it didn't quite make it all in. But what you want to do for this is you want to take your research and then you want to come up with a product of some kind now. Okay, so you want to make sure that your research that you've done your research first of all, and you've chosen a psychologist, and then you want to present it somehow. And you have a couple choices. You can do a PowerPoint, you can do a paper, You can do a Prezi. I don't know if you know the how to do a Prezi or not. I've heard of Prezi, but if you haven't, you can talk to me about it, and I'll show you kind of how it works. And I'm sure there's other programs out there that you could fiddle with that would be cool to have something in, you know. So if you have a program out there that you've worked with before and you think is kind of cool, then bring it up to me and I'll take a look at it and I'll probably say yes because I want to learn about cool new things on the internet as well. All right. So let's talk about due dates then. All right. Our quiz is going to be due on Tuesday. You want the quiz to be done by Tuesday, okay? For the Psychoanalytic School of Thought discussion, that one's going to be due on Friday, okay? And for the School of Thought, that is going to be due on Thursday. And then the famous psychologist draft, I want to start seeing drafts by Friday, okay? Now I know some of you have already started putting things into draft form when you were doing your research, which is fine. You can, like some people were just building a PowerPoint while they were doing their research, and that's fine. If you want to take that route, that's great. If you're a writer and you'd rather write the like an essay form of a paper, that's great too. I kind of want to see what you're going to give me before I give a lot of direction as to how you should write things and how you should present things to me. I want to know, this is like our first major assignment, I want to know what you can do. Okay? So that's kind of what I want to see, all right? And then, in the upcoming weeks, we're going to have the behaviorists and the humanists, right? I have a couple of videos on the behaviors and on play therapy. If you don't know what play therapy is, it's pretty interesting. Yeah, and we'll have some school of thought assignments to do, right, on each one. And then we'll start getting into the cognitive therapies where they talk about your thoughts, and that's the root of all things good and all things bad. And then we'll have a cognitive school of thought assignment. And then at the end of all of our schools of thought, after we go through this for weeks and weeks and weeks, we are going to have a test on all of our knowledge. So the test is going to be part multiple choice, it'll be part short answer, it'll be part kind of longer answer. So we're going to try and hit a number of different methods of obtaining this information. So I'm going to see all of your schools of thought. I'm going to see all of your research by that time, right? So we're going to put it all together and we're going to take a big old test. It'll be fun. So I would suggest that you take good notes from the PowerPoints. The reason why I put them in this little spot here, it'll be right next to where it says hidden right now. The reason why I put them here is because you want to make sure that you go at your own pace so that you have the information that you need to be successful. I tend to kind of talk how I'm talking now, which can be kind of fast for some people. If you can learn to take notes in the fast pace that I talk, then you'll be good for college. But not everybody's going to college, first of all, and not everybody can, automatically take notes as fast as I talk. So, I understand that. So that's why I put the PowerPoints there. So make sure you take good notes on this, all right? And make sure you have the most important assignments for the test, of course, are going to be these schools of thought. So make sure that you are, doing those to the best of your ability because that will help you in the test, right? Last year when I was doing this, the students who did well in the schools of thought aced the test. Okay? All right, guys. Well, let's have a good week of work and learn about the history of psychological theory. All right, we will see you online and on the internets. Have a good week, guys.